Alright, private oral exam guide. We're going to be in chapter 4, airplane systems. This will be aircraft and engine operations, section A. What are the four main control surfaces and what are their functions? Elevators. The elevators control the movement of the airplane about its lateral axis. The motion is called pitch. Ailerons. The ailerons control the airplane's movement about its longitudinal axis. This motion is called roll. Rudder. The rudder controls movement of the airplane about its vertical axis. This motion is called yaw. Trim tabs. Trim tabs are small, adjustable hinge surfaces on the aileron, rudder, or elevator control surfaces. They are labor-saving devices that enable the pilot to release manual pressure on the primary control. How are the various flight controls operated? Flight control surfaces are manually actuated through use of either a rod or cable system. The control wheel actuates the ailerons and elevator, and the rudder brake pedals actuate the rudder. What are flaps and what is their function? The wing flaps are movable panels on the inboard trailing edges of the wings. They are hinged so that they may be extended downward into the flow of the air beneath the wing to increase both lift and drag. Their purpose is to permit a slower airspeed and a steeper angle of descent during the landing approach. In some cases, they may also be used to shorten the takeoff distance. Describe the landing gear system on this airplane. Landing gear consists of a tricycle-type system utilizing two main wheels and a steerable nose wheel. Tubular spring steel main gear struts provide the main gear shock absorption, while nose gear shock absorption is provided by a combination of air-oil shock strut. Describe the braking system on this aircraft. Hydraulic actuated disc-type brakes are utilized on each main gear wheel. Hydraulic line connects each brake to a master cylinder located on each pilot's rudder pedal. By applying pressure to the top of either the pilot or co-pilot set of rudder pedals, the brakes may be applied. How is steering accomplished on the ground? Light airplanes are generally provided with nose wheel steering capabilities through a simple system of mechanical linkage connected to the rudder pedals. When a rudder pedal is depressed, a spring-loaded bungee push-pull rod connected to the pivotal portion of the nose wheel strut will turn the nose wheel. What type of engine does your aircraft have? A horizontally opposed four-cylinder, overhead valve, air-cooled carbureted engine. The engine is manufactured by Lycoming and rated at 110 horsepower. What four strokes must occur in each cylinder of a typical four-stroke engine in order for it to produce full power? The four strokes are intake, fuel mixture is drawn into the cylinder by a downward stroke. The compression, mixture is compressed by upward strokes. Power, the spark ignites mixture, forcing piston downward and producing it power. And exhaust, burn gases pushed out of the cylinder by the upward stroke. What does the carburetor do? Carburation may be defined as the process of mixing fuel and air in the correct proportions so as to form a combustible mixture. The carburetor vaporizes liquid fuel into small particles and then mixes it with air. It measures the airflow and meters fuel accordingly. How does the carburetor heat system work? How does the carburetor heat system work? Carburetor heat valve, controlled by the pilot, allows unfiltered heated air from the shroud located around an exhaust riser of a muffler to be directed to the induction air manifold prior to the carburetor. Carburetor heat should be used anytime suspected or known carburetor icing conditions exist. What change occurs to the fuel-air mixture when applying carburetor heat? Normally, the induction of heated air into the carburetor will result in a richer mixture. Warm air is less dense, resulting in less air for the same amount of fuel. What does the throttle do? Throttle allows the pilot to manually control the amount of fuel air charge entering the cylinders. This in turn regulates the engine speed and power. What does the mixture control do? It regulates the fuel to air ratio. All airplane engines incorporate a device called a mixture control, by which the fuel-air ratio can be controlled by the pilot during flight. The purpose of a mixture control is to prevent the mixture from becoming too rich at high altitudes due to decreasing air density. It is also used to lean the mixture during cross-country flights to conserve fuel and provide optimum power. Describe a fuel injection system installed in some aircraft. The fuel injection system injects fuel directly into the cylinders or just ahead the intake valve and incorporates 6 basic components. Engine-driven fuel pump provides fuel under pressure from the fuel tank to the fuel air control unit. The fuel air control unit meters fuel based on the mixture control setting and sends it to the fuel manifold valve at a rate controlled by the throttle. Fuel manifold valve distributes fuel to the individual fuel discharge nozzles. Located in each cylinder head, these inject the fuel air mixture at a precise time for each cylinder directly into each cylinder intake port. Auxiliary fuel pump provides fuel under pressure to fuel air control unit for engine starting and or emergency use. Fuel pressure flow indicators measures metered fuel pressure flow. What type of ignition system does your airplane have? Engine ignition is provided by 2 engine-driven magnetos and 2 spark plugs per cylinder. The ignition system is completely independent of the aircraft's electrical system. The magnetos are engine-driven, self-contained units supplying electrical current without using an external source of current. However, before they can produce current, the magnetos must be actuated, as the engine crankshaft is rotated by some other means. To accomplish the aircraft battery furnishes electrical power to operate a starter which, through a series of gears, rotates the engine's crankshaft. This in turn actuates the armature of the magneto to produce the sparks for ignition of the fuel in each cylinder. After an engine starts, the starter system is disengaged and the battery no longer contributes to the actual operation of the engine. What are the 2 main advantages of a dual ignition system? Increased safety. In case one system fails, the engine may be operated on the other until a landing is safely made. More complete and even combustion of the mixture and consequently improving engine performance. The fuel air mixture will be ignited on each side of the combustion chamber and burned toward the center. What type of fuel system does your aircraft have? Fuel system is a gravity feed system. Using gravity, the fuel flows from 2 wing fuel tanks to a fuel shuttle valve which, in on position, allows fuel to flow through a strainer and then to the carburetor. From there, the fuel is mixed with air and then flows into the cylinders through the intake manifold tubes. What purpose do fuel tank vents have? As the fuel level in aircraft fuel tank decreases, a vacuum would be created within the tank which would eventually result in decreasing fuel flow and finally engine stoppage. Fuel system venting provides a way of replacing fuel with outside air, preventing formation of a vacuum. Does your aircraft use a fuel pump? No. The fuel is transferred from the wing tanks to the carburetor by a gravity feed system. The gravity feed system does not require a fuel pump because the fuel is always under positive pressure to the carburetor. For some aircraft, for some reason, it is not possible to place the wings above the carburetor, or for which a greater pressure is required than the gravity feed can supply. It is necessary to utilize engine-driven fuel pumps and auxiliary fuel pumps as backups. What type of fuel does your aircraft require? Minimum octane rating and color. The approved fuel grade used is 100 LL and the color is blue. Can other types of fuel be used if the specific grade is not available? Airplane engines are designed to operate using a specific grade of fuel as recommended by the manufacturer. If the proper grade of fuel is not available, it is possible but not desirable to use the next higher grade as a substitute. Always reference the aircraft AFM or POH. What color of dye is added to the following fuel grades? 80, 100, 100 LL, or turbine? Grade. 80 is red, 100 is green, 100 LL is blue, and Jet A is colorless or straw. If a non-turbine piston engine powered airplane is accidentally fueled with Jet A fuel, will it start? Yes. The piston engine operating on jet fuel may start, run, and power the airplane, but will fail because the engine has been destroyed from detonation. Jet fuel can be identified by its distinctive kerosene scent, an oily feel when rubbed between the fingers. What is the function of the manual primer and how does it operate? The manual primer main function is to provide assistance in starting the engine. The primer draws fuel from the fuel strainer and injects it directly into the cylinder intake point. This usually results in a quicker, more efficient engine start. Describe the electrical system on your airplane. Electrical energy is provided by a 28-volt direct current system powered by an engine-driven 60-amp alternator and 24-volt battery. How are the circuits for the various electrical accessories within the aircraft protected? Most of the electrical circuits in the airplane are protected from an overload condition by either circuit breakers or fuses or both. Circuit breakers perform the same function as fuses, except that when an overload occurs, the circuit breaker can be reset. The electrical system provides power for what equipment in an airplane? Normally the following. Electrical system will power the radio equipment, turn coordinator, fuel gauges, pitot heat, landing light, taxi light, strobe light, interior light, instrument light, position light, flaps, maybe, stall warning system, maybe, oil temperature gauge, electrical fuel pump, maybe. What does the ammeter indicate? The ammeter indicates the flow of current in amperes from the alternator to the battery or from the battery to the electrical system. With the engine running and master switch on, the ammeter will indicate the charging rate of the battery. If the alternator has gone offline and is no longer functioning, or the electrical load exceeds the output of the alternator, the ammeter indicates the discharge rate of the battery. The ammeter indicates the flow of current in amperes from the alternator to the battery or from the battery to the electrical system. Number 29. What function does the voltage regulator have? The voltage regulator is a device which monitors system voltage, detects changes, and makes the required adjustments in the output of the alternator to maintain a constant regulated system voltage. It must do this at low RPM, such as during taxi, as well as high RPM in flight. In a 28-volt system, it will maintain 28 volts, plus or minus 0.5 volts. Why is the generator alternator voltage output slightly higher than the battery voltage? The difference in voltage keeps the battery charged. For example, a 12-volt battery will be supplied with 14 volts. Wow, keep going. Oh, we got B coming up right here. 31. How does the aircraft cabin heat work? Fresh air heated by exhaust valve is directed to the cabin through a series of ducts. How does the pilot control temperature in the cabin? Temperature is controlled by mixing outside air, cabin air control, with heated air, cabin heat control, in a manifold near the cabin firewall. This air is then ducted to vents located on the cabin floor. What are the 5 basic functions of aircraft engine oil? Lubricates the engine's moving parts, cools the engine by reducing friction, removes heat from the cylinders, seals provide the seal between the cylinder walls and pistons, cleans by carrying off metal and carbon particles and other oil contaminants. So that was section A of chapter 4, airplane system. We're going to hold off there. That's on 4-10.